Welcome to another edition of Raptors Today. I'm Savanna Hamilton alongside Paul Jones and Sherman Hamilton. Guys, the Raptors dropped another game last night to Boston, but we'll be heading on the road now to Phoenix. And let's take a look ahead. Yeah, we got Phoenix, we got Sacramento, we got Golden State coming up ahead of us, and the Portland Trail Blazers. But let's break down last night. Sherm, I'm going to go to you. What are you seeing offensively that could potentially spark motion in this offense against Phoenix?
Well, I think number one, Sav, when you look at what the Raptors aren't doing well is they're not finishing well at the rim. And, sometimes that's manufactured by not good looks, but sometimes it's just about concentrating and finishing the play, whether there's a defensive presence there or not. And I think a few times we've seen over the last handful of games, the Raptors are getting to the rim, but they're just not finishing it. And I think they've got to be more concentrated in making baskets at the rim. And if not, get to the free throw line. And then when they get to the free throw line, they've got to make those free throws there. They're not very good from the free throw line either. The other side of it is this team likes to shoot a lot of threes. Against Boston, they had 38 free throw attempts, but only 37 three-point attempts. I'm okay with that balance, but I think this team is predicated on making enough threes to keep the balance. And they're getting good looks, I think, a lot of the time. The majority of the time, I'm not upset with the looks they're getting from three. And at some point, you've got to make those three-point shots, but also understand when to flip that switch and understand when it's not going down from three, get into attack mode and balance it out. But I just think that they've got to stay consistent to the game plan. And, you don't want to just say they got to make more shots because that's not the whole issue. But to a certain extent, they have to make more shots. Better body movement, guys getting involved, but they have to make the shots that they're getting that are open.
Now, with good defense and offense, with good offense comes some defense as well. Now, Jonesy, do you think that with a tighter offense, do you think it would spark defense or vice versa? What's the relationship here with that?
I think you can get stuff offensively from your defense, and Toronto's not doing it as consistently as they did last year. And the numbers are deceiving because last year they were number 2 in opponents' turnover percentage, which means second in the NBA in terms of the number of opponents' possessions that end in turnovers. They're in the same spot this year. So it's not the turnover creation, it's the other stuff. We're seeing, as we did much of the time in years past, where they play good defense, there are contested shots, they force a miss, but they don't secure the possession with a rebound. And usually off an offensive rebound, there's a scramble. Now it gets kicked out, and the other team's getting a good look at a three. And the other parts of that is keeping men in front of you, keeping people in front of you. Guys get into the lane. It forces rotation. It leads to kick-out passes. It also leads to guys getting the ball up on the rim, maybe under duress, but now your rebounding is wounded because you've had a bigger player come over to contest the shot, and you've got a smaller player trying to box out a bigger player. These are little things that we're not used to seeing with this team, and they're going to get them straightened out. I'm seeing the coverages and the schemes the same. They're double teaming. They're changing out of double teams. But what they're not doing consistently is applying the schemes or applying the effort consistently within the schemes to get those misses. We saw in the San Antonio game, they double teamed DeMar, take it out of his hands. They're there for the first pass out of the double team. They're there for the second pass. It gets swung again, and guys haven't recovered or people haven't communicated, and it leads to an open corner three. So those are the things that I think they have to kind of figure out on the defensive end. The effort is there. As Sherm talked about with the offense, it needs to be consistent. There needs to be the attention to detail. And I'm not saying it's not going to happen. It just hasn't happened consistently yet in this early part of the season.
Coach Nick Nurse, Lowry, and Fred, they all spoke to media last night. Let's hear their thoughts.
Just our inability to guard Doug. I think that was the biggest thing. I mean, we gave up 38 in the second quarter. We didn't score a lot, which means we were playing a lot in transition or off turnovers. Put a little pressure on our D, but it was just. I think mostly it was just inability to make it tough, make them take tough shots. For whatever reason, we're not keeping the ball. We're not guarding the ball very well. Whether it's just somebody trying to penetrate into the paint to create, or if it's a guy isoing out to play one-on-one. We're just not making it hard enough. I'm not, and it's not any one person in particular. It seems to be spreading. And that's one of our strengths, really. It used to be one of our strengths was we really guarded penetration well, and we're not guarding it very well at all right now.
Yes, I'm surprised, but I think we need to be tougher. I think we just need to, get a little bit more grittier, get a little bit more tougher, and a little bit more nastier, and have a little bit of a swag to us. And right now we have no swag to us. Right now we have nothing, there's nothing to us, right? We're just like that team, teams are looking at us like, all right, let's go eat. And that's not a good feeling. And I think we have to use that and fuel our own fire. And somehow, some way, we got to help this West Coast trip, has to be a start of something, because it could be a really bad trip if we don't, look at this first game and look at all these games and see how we can get better.
That's my job. That's my job. And I got to do a better job of what I've been doing. I got to keep trying to lead, find new ways to help guys. I got to play better myself. And, I got to keep continuing to find ways to help our team individually and collectively. So nobody's above criticism, and I'm certainly not. And whatever I'm doing is not enough, obviously. And, this is about wins and losses around here. And, we're not getting many wins right now. But it's a long season, man. Long season. We got to stay confident and keep believing in ourselves and in each other. And we'll work our way out of it.
Now you heard Fred there kind of taking the weight a bit on himself, responsibility there. And he's saying that he's got to do a better job. But sure, let me ask you this. What more can he do?
Well, first of all, I think Fred is doing what great leaders do. They take the responsibility. They publicly let everybody know that it's on them and that they have to be better. Even though Fred's playing great, he acknowledges to the public that he has to play better. And behind closed doors, you deal with the issues on the squad and you have those real discussions. And I think for Fred, he's doing as much as you can ask for in terms of scoring the basketball, leading the team, assisting, defending. He's leaving it all out there. And as someone who's outside the team, I can honestly look at Fred and say, you're doing what you're supposed to do. It's other guys around you that have to step up. You can't really look at either him or Kyle and say, hey, there's got to be that much more coming out of the point guard position. I think it's the other positions around those two guys that really have to clean up what's happening. Norm is struggling. OG is struggling with consistency. That center position is really, really not giving them enough. And then we all talk about Pascal, and it's good to see him have some moments against Boston, but that consistent leadership from Pascal we're not seeing in production. So Fred's doing what I'd say good leaders do. To the public, let everybody know it's about you, but behind closed doors, you lead your troops and you make sure that everyone understands that they have to be accountable.
Now you touched on Pascal there, and Jonesy, this one's for you because, talk to me about what Pascal can do offensively to kind of keep his momentum from his performance from the second half of the Boston game and bring it to Phoenix and on the road.
Well, just what he did in that second half. I saw a guy who was a little bit more determined. He wasn't, it seemed like in previous games, he was pressing. And here he's turned that kind of sense of urgency of pressing into, I'm going to make things happen, but I'm going to do it at my pace. He got to the basket. He made a couple shots. He identified matchups. You saw him working, especially on Grant Williams a couple times down in the low post area, trying to get paint touches for his team, and then looking to score. And, Sherm made a point a couple games ago where he got into the lane and he was close to the basket and he was trying to be almost too unselfish. Look after what you can with you, and then once they start to adjust to you, you'll be able to get the rest of your teammates involved. And I thought Pascal did a good job of that in the second half. And quite frankly, he needs to do more of that. It will help guys take the load off guys like Fred and Kyle, and it'll instill confidence in some of the other players. It's about slowly putting yourself back into a position where you're, able to make a run at a win and get wins in the left-hand column and then build your confidence back. And I saw some of the confidence lacking in Pascal. And it seemed like last night there were times when he seemed to be getting it back. And I know that they got beat last night, But when you look at his line, it looks a little bit better. And it wasn't a line that was done in garbage time. He was doing that as the team was trying to keep it, stay in the game. So that's a good sign for Pascal and for the team moving forward.
Now, Jonesy, talk to me about Kyle Lowry. How can he get more guys involved in the offense and defense?
Well, Kyle has always tried to get guys involved. And I think Kyle just needs to keep playing his game and keep playing the way he's playing. He pushes the ball up the court. He's consistently looking for his big guys, whether it be Baines or Boucher or Len. I mean, in years past, he was always looking for Gasol and Ibaka. So Kyle's not going to go away from that. He's really an old school type of point guard in that sense. He looks for his scoring when it's there, but he's also looking to get particularly his big man involved and the rest of the guys involved. So for Kyle, it's about maintaining his focus and not letting the frustration of what's going on around him alter his game. He's a leader. Guys are going to be looking to him to continue to do that. Do your thing, get your guys involved, and hold your team together as a leader. I don't think Kyle's play, other than effort, I don't think Kyle's play it has been impacted. He's got to keep his focus. And I can see that. I can see the frustration in him because he knows what it takes to win, and he's just trying to rekindle that and regain that for his team.
You're right. And, we also saw some big effort coming from Chris Boucher off the bench. Sure, do you think that Chris Boucher is going to continue to come off the bench like this? Would you want to keep him there for that spark? Talk to me. What do you think?
Well, I've said this already. I think Chris Boucher is going to have a great season. Regardless of what happens, he's going to come out, and I feel like he is going to play at a high level for Chris Boucher's production. Not a high level in terms of all-star and best player in the league type of thing, but for his production. Now, I honestly feel like at some point you got to balance things out. If Chris Boucher is continuing to play like this, and if he can get you off to good starts, because the Raptors haven't struggled in that area as much as closing games, but if he can help coming off the bench as a starter and being a guy who can come into the game and provide some center presence, I think Nick Nurse has to look into that. Having said that, you don't want to completely deplete the second unit of a scoring option, which he's been, and he's been a very good energy guy. So I think that is a discussion that has to be had. Do you just start doing that the next game? I don't know. I just think that you've got to be wary of disruption on both units when you adjust like that, and you don't want to take away all your options from your second unit. And I think maybe you give Norm a bit more time to figure it out and see if he can find some rhythm to help that second unit. But we have to applaud Chris Boucher's play. He's been awesome for this team on so many levels. And, he's one of the bright spots at the start of the season.
He's really stepped up, and I'm excited to see it. And I totally agree with you. He's going to have a great season. We all see it coming. Now, we do have to go to our conversation, but I'll be right back with you guys in just a moment.
This is RTX, and today I'm joined by Vivek Jacob, freelance at CBC Sports, as well as Complex Canada. Vivek, so nice to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, welcome back. Of course, I call her the queen sometimes. Meghan McPeak, Washington Mystics by-play and CBC Sports contributor as well. Meghan, welcome to RTX.
Savannah, thank you for having me. It's good to be back with my native family.
Yeah. She's a Raptors 905 OG. This is where she started. So it's awesome to have you as well. So let's get right into it. We saw a glimpse of performing to him as himself last night. And that was pretty promising. But what does he need to do to consistently perform like his all-NBA self? Meghan, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Pascal, last season we saw him have to make that transition into being, that second guy with the departure of Kawhi Leonard. And we saw how that, played a role in his up and down season. Now we're seeing him have to also adapt to the constant communication and constant people talking like myself, you and Vivek about how his play is. And then as well, too, he also is dealing with his own mind and the own, self-talk that he's having with himself. And I think the easiest, it's easy for us to say this, but it's harder for him to actually do is just block out the noise, block out all the media, block out everybody on social media, block out all the talking heads, listen to yourself, listen to your teammates, and listen to your coach. Because at the end of the day, they believe in you, you've believed in yourself. And at the end of the day, when you look at what he's been able to do from joining the Raptors organization and the league, whether it was playing with the Raptors or getting assigned to the G League, he's consistently taken steps to improve himself. So I think it's simply just getting out of his own head and allowing the game to come to him and to flow through him. And we're going to see what we've seen from him in the last couple of years that's been able to put him at this level.
I think with Pascal, the number one thing is to stop getting himself in foul trouble. You're not going to help your team as the number one guy when you're not on the floor. And so he's got to figure that part of it out. Where does that start? It starts on the defensive end. When you look at his struggles in the bubble, despite those offensive struggles, he was still in the game at the end of games because of the impact he was having defensively. And so that's what he needs to go back to. When he's getting himself in better position and just playing better one-on-one defense, that's going to help the team. And then going to the offensive side of things, I think he's getting a little too caught up in, again, the narrative that the Raptors aren't getting to the free throw line. Should be getting to the line more, but that will come when he's getting the baskets that you're accustomed to seeing. And we saw a bit of that in the Boston game. If he can just play his natural game, get to the rim, get some easy ones, not worry about actually getting the call, but just making the shot, I think the rest of it will just come together.
Now, you mentioned accustomed. We as fans are accustomed to seeing, a lot of crazy fans in Scotiabank Arena normally, with the Raptors sometimes. But how do you feel that Tampa performance right now? How much is it performing, Vivek?
I think the main thing it's impacting is we're seeing a bit of a lag in terms of the Raptors just getting to themselves. They've had so much to adjust to off the court, just finding a place to live, just finding a daily routine. And those things I think have impacted them just being able to focus on basketball right from the get-go. So I think over time, this is not who they are. They will get back to a better level than they've shown so far.
I think too, as well, when it comes to the fans, you're also dealing with football country and you're dealing with hockey country. You're not really dealing with basketball country in Tampa specifically. And I think as well too, a lot of the fans that are going to these games, and when they're able to, they may not necessarily be going for the Raptors specifically. They may be going for who their opposing players may be playing against as well too. But I think to Vivek's point, it also stems from the Raptors just playing themselves. At the end of the day, hooping is hooping, and these guys know how to do it. They're the best of the best in this league and the best of the best in the world. So I think if they can just get back to what comes naturally to them, which is hooping, the fans are going to embrace them the way we see fans across the world embrace the Toronto Raptors.
I love it. Hooping is just hooping. We do have a quick question I need to get right after this. Last year we saw Nick Nurse call out some players, and it actually helped them. They actually performed better for it. We're seeing this now again. He called out Matt Thomas and Terrence Davis in particular. Do you think that we'll see a similar result? Do you think?
I think at the end of the day, when it comes to players, they're their worst enemies and they're their biggest critics. If your coach knows you and Nick Nurse knows his players, he knows how to get the best out of each and every one of them individually and what he needs to do to get that out of them. He knows what their expectations are and what his expectations are of them. So I imagine that although he called them out, at the end of the day, they're probably calling themselves out too. So they're going to bounce back. I don't see any issue with that.
Sav, as you said, this is a strategy he's gone to before. I would expect it to work again. The only thing he's got to be careful of, this is a long season ahead, especially just not having the comforts of home. So he's just got to walk that line a little bit.
It's a pleasure to have you both back on here. Meghan, always great seeing you again. And Vivek, hope to have you back. We got to go back now to Paul Jones and Sherman Hamilton.
The Raptors take on the Phoenix Suns on Wednesday, 9 p.m. You can catch the game on Sportsnet on TV and TSN 1050 radio. Now, guys, we have to talk about Chris Paul, CP3. What issues do you see him and the backcourt presenting against the Raptors? Sherm, let me know.
All kinds of issues, Savannah. I mean, Chris Paul has gotten to that organization, and it's not like they didn't have some very good young pieces in Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. These guys are nice young players, but you add a veteran like Chris Paul, and he just brings that stability, that understanding, that knowledge, that experience, and that leadership. And what we're seeing is a more mature-looking Phoenix Suns team. And I think it couldn't have come at a better time in terms of the development of Devin Booker. You know, Phoenix had a great showing in the bubble at the end of last season. So it was good timing to add a Chris Paul, bring his leadership, bring his experience and his toughness to that Phoenix Suns organization, and just put it all together with that great young talent. And I think they're really going to surprise some teams. And this is going to be a tough start to the road trip because of these two guys in terms of Chris Paul and Devin Booker. But you just can't put a number or a value on what experience and toughness and leadership can do for young players in this league.
Now, Jonesy, what about DeAndre Ayton? What can the Raptors expect from him?
Well, I mean, he fits in as a great compliment. You know, Sherm talked about Chris Paul, and I'll say this for Chris Paul before I get to Ayton. The one thing that the late Kobe Bryant talked about when the 2008 Olympic team was together was the competitive spirit of Chris Paul, and you can see that since then where he's brought it everywhere that he's been. And DeAndre Ayton is a perfect complement to that. You think about a big guy who can play on the perimeter. I mean, he's not yet stepping out and shooting the three all the time, but he's got the potential to do that. He can face up at the basket. He moves well. He runs the floor. He's good in the low post on the offensive end. And then you look at what he offers on the defensive end. Can protect the rim, jump out, contain smaller players. He's not your classic, slow, plodding big guy. And the Raptors are going to have their hands full. Again, I think we may see a little bit more of Alex Len. You know, Aaron Baines is a guy who was in Phoenix, and he'll present a few problems for Ayton with his mobility. But in terms of sheer size, I think you're going to see Alex Len because he's a guy that can match the girth of DeAndre Ayton. And again, Ayton can play in many different ways. And the old school stuff is tried and true, Savannah. It never goes out of style. And Ayton can play in the low post, and the Raptors are going to have to be leery of that.
That's music to a big man's ears. That the big man game is not gone, but the Raptors will have to be, like you said, wary of that. Thank you guys so much. And thanks to you, the viewers, for catching another episode of Raptors Today.